All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and jump into it. We have a really exciting opportunity to talk about today. Hopefully, you guys have signed up for the industry day that's tomorrow in Huntsville. Um, I am going to assume that the majority of you guys know what this opportunity is about, so I kind of skipped over the basics of Shield, um, or at least the intro. So I'm not going over that. Instead, I'm talking about what it is we need to focus on, some of the key nuances that I saw in the RFP and the draft RFP that got released in July. And just kind of want to give you guys my thoughts on it. I want to hear from you all on what kind of questions you have. And certainly, if we band together and ask the government a bunch of questions about how to clarify this RFP, hopefully we can get a better RFP or a more specific one and make it easier for all of us to bid, make it reduce the risk of protests, and get this critical program up and running. All right, so this is the Missile Defense Agency's Scalable Homeland, and I did not capitalize the E. Homeland Innovative Enterprise Layered Defense Webinar, also known as SHIELD. When I first heard this, I was like, "Oh, what's the Marvel Shield, and how close is it to that?" Kind of funny. Hopefully the Marvel jokes will continue. All right, so let's get into it, guys. Real quick, if this is your first webinar with us, I am David Huff. I'm the CEO of OST Global Solutions. We are a full lifecycle business development consulting firm. We've won $28 billion in funded contracts since 2005. If you count our ceiling values for vehicles, we're probably in the $500 billion range. But we do business development, capture, and proposal consulting. We help people build their portfolio of IDVs, which is what SHIELD is. We help also develop and manage our clients' opportunity pipelines. We help do capture. We help write winning proposals and optimize your processes. We also have the Bid and Proposal Academy that has the only in the nation registered apprenticeship in business development. It is 350 hours of training, a competency-based training model that covers the full aspect of BD. This is for your up-and-coming BD folks, your current BD folks, your program managers who might be getting into BD or growing into capture. All of those folks will get tremendous value out of this. We also are registered with the Department of Veterans Affairs and can accept the GI Bill as payment for the program. Veterans will also receive their housing stipend if they qualify for the post 9/11 GI Bill. We run the Small Business Innovation Research and the STTR Proposal Lab for the state of Maryland and for the state of Alabama. Our next cohorts are looking to be formed here pretty soon. So if you are a Maryland-based business or an Alabama-based business, and you are interested in getting non-dilutive funding for an invention that you have, we are the place for you. So we have generated tremendous success with these cohorts. I think we are 2.5 times the national average win rate for first-time SIBR submissions. So we also won an award with Maryland's Proposal Lab, I think in 2022, the Tibbetts Award for the best in SBIR programming in the nation. So really tremendous opportunity for those of you who are looking into SIBRs and SITRs. So if you are interested in learning more about that, reach out to us as well. And then before we get into the actual meat of the webinar, I want to talk to you guys about an AI partnership that we formed and what it is we're doing, and a pretty awesome offer for you. So we partnered with an AI company to automate capture and win strategy. So making the capture better, making it more efficient, the workflows between business development and capture and proposal teams, and also helping you build in a competitive advantage early in the process, and really developing a living strategy engine for the software. So very, very awesome. I can't go into too many details now, But you can book an appointment with me if you'd like to learn more about this. What we're offering now is 33% off the first year license when it launches in December. And you also will get 5 licenses to the platform and also 5 licenses to OST self-paced training courses, which is the 350 hours of the full life cycle of BD in the meantime. So people who sign up early will be getting the concierge white glove kind of rollout. You guys will be deeply involved in the next feature sets and how this system will evolve over time. And what things you find most important. So it's a tremendous opportunity. You can take a picture of this QR code right here and book an appointment directly with me, and I'm happy to give you more details about that. This is a great chance to upskill your BD team and your customer-facing opportunities teams to close more opportunities in these times. So a lot of the courseware that we have in our program includes on-contract growth for your program managers. So how to sell out your contracts, how to recognize opportunities as you are doing program delivery so that you start working on turning your workforce into your sales force. Book a call to learn more. Again, this is my personal Calendly, so happy to chat with you guys about this. And Dave, I'm seeing a lot of people and I'm seeing a lot of people that are hanging out in the room. So if you could please admit those folks as they come in, I'd appreciate it. All right, guys. So let's talk about the draft RFP. This came out last month. At first glance, it looks like a really easy proposal. And at least from the terms of the delivery. As I started getting into it and kind of sitting with the requirements for a little bit, it is not as easy as it first looks. And I'll kind of go over why, and I'll give you some examples of what I think is in scope, what might be on the borderline, and then if it is, if your past experience is on the borderline of what's allowed and what's not allowed, maybe how to frame it so that it becomes allowed. So a lot of my slides are kind of a continuation of a lot of the lessons learned from Oasis Plus in the last webinar we did a couple of weeks ago, which is that relevancy determination. So just like Oasis Plus, we will have to submit corporate experience as the basis of getting onto this contract. The problem is that you do not get a lot of space to talk about your corporate experience. It's a very limited narrative. So it is going to be critically important that we nail the 600 characters that they give us in our past performance forms and make sure that we are not including things that are out of scope, and we're 1000% focused on exactly what they're asking. So I would hate for you guys to put this on your strategic roadmap and make this a must-win only to be disqualified because we did not frame our corporate experience exactly the way that MDA wants to see it. Okay, so again, this is a draft RFP. I'm going to provide some ideas about what kinds of questions to ask specifically tomorrow at the industry day, or if they open up or if they allow for questions after the industry day to open up for industry feedback to the government for that. I know that there was already a Q&A period. There might be one again. So, all right, this is the proposal organization. So fairly easy. There's essentially 2 volumes. Your administrative volume, which is your signed SF-33 with your paragraphs filled out, your reps and certs with, include that, bankruptcy and adverse information, proof of financial capability and stability, foreign ownership, which is 8 pages. There's the SF-328 to fill out. Any conflict of interest that you have, there's a specific format provided in the draft RFP for that. And then if you are a large business, your small business subcontracting plan, I believe the small business set-aside requirement for that is 30%. So that's been, I think that's went down pretty significantly with this new administration. So make sure you update your small business subcontracting plan accordingly. Then we get into the meat of it, which is corporate experience. They give us a 6-page limit on this. You don't get, like, it's a form, basically. I think it's a 6-page form. So this form may change based on feedback from the industry, but we'll go over what that form looks like and kind of what the nuance is. So as of now, this is all there is to submit in the proposal. Quick. All right, my bad. All right, evaluation criteria. Awards are going to be given to all qualified offers, which is nice. So if you meet the minimum requirements, you get an award. So this is non-competitive. So a qualified offer is one who meets the responsibility determination by the contracting officer, who submits a technically acceptable proposal. And the wording on this was kind of weird, but it was the contracting officer has no reason to believe that the offer would submit other than fair and reasonable pricing. So I changed that to a more positive statement where you will offer fair and reasonable pricing. There is no pricing at the IDIQ level. All of that's going to be evaluated at the order level. Okay. And then we're going to go into an acceptable and unacceptable rating for corporate experience. So it's pass fail. We'll go over what that is here in a second. So the acceptable rating is you have recent and relevant corporate experience in at least 2 IDIQ scope of work areas. We'll go over that here in a bit. The unacceptable is the offer has not demonstrated recent and relevant corporate experience in at least 2 of the work areas. So there's a little bit of nuance that we kind of need to go through as part of our webinar here. And let's dive in. So recency, performed within 5 years of the date of the solicitation. So whenever it comes out, 5 years, subtract 5 years off of that date, and that is what recency will be. That's the cutoff. Relevancy is where it starts getting interesting. So basically, as it stands right now, the requirement for this is the corporate experience involves some of the scope that would be under the Section C scope descriptions, comparable areas, and the offeror's corporate experience in a missile defense or similarly related application. So that similarly related application is very broad. So I kind of have my initial interpretation of what I think that means. You guys probably have your own, and this is where I think a lot of the problems are going to pop up is what is considered a similarly related application. And when we get to sample questions to ask the government, I think that this is where a lot of the focus needs to be, because as you'll see here in a bit of what is not in scope, that line is highly, highly subjective. So, you know, particularly with the Oasis Plus proposals, we saw a lot of companies who have reached out to us after they did not get on the first Oasis Plus on-ramp and said, oh, well, this consultant filled it out. You know, one of our experiences got disqualified as not relevant, and we didn't get an award. So on Oasis Plus, you know, okay, you miss out on a year of task orders as the GWAC is ramping up. For this one, this is a 10-year, $151 billion contract. And I didn't see an on-ramp for this. So, like, if we miss out on this, you know, the stakes for this is a lot higher. The stakes for this competition is a lot higher than Oasis Plus that are having rolling on-ramps. So if I'm wrong on that, somebody correct me in the chat, because I might be, but I just didn't see any rolling on-ramps for the Shield opportunity. Anyway, the stakes are high for this. We do not want to screw this up, and we don't want to make a mistake that's within our control because we didn't put that discerning eye towards our corporate experience and make sure that we said the right words in the form. All right, so we have to provide at least 2, but no more than 3 of the work areas at the prime or subcontractor level. So this was kind of interesting. We get to submit up to 3 corporate experiences. And within those 3 corporate experiences, we have to cover at least 2 of the work areas, but no more than 3. So I'm assuming that this means that it's 1 scope area per one one experience per scope area, right? That's what I'm assuming that this language means. It could also be the other way I read this too is that within each corporate experience, you had to provide experience in two of the scope areas. So that's a little bit of confusion as well that I had when I was reading this. You could read it both ways. I think it is one corporate experience per scope area, but you could certainly read it the other way. And I think we need some clarification on that. So I would recommend, if you guys haven't asked questions yet, that's a question. So for an offeror's corporate experience, and I think that this, when they refer to this corporate experience, it is the whole volume, that it has to demonstrate recent and relevant corporate experience in more than one of the Section C work areas. So I'm leaning towards the interpretation of this is that our three experiences, two or three experiences that we have to submit, have to cover more than one, which would be two, right? So we have to cover at least two. That is clear. What's not clear is if it's individual corporate experiences that we have to submit, need to hit two or more, or if it is it the entire corporate experience ballroom, right? So I hope that makes sense, but there's a little bit of confusion in the requirements that I have because it's just not explicitly clear. All right, so these are the scope areas. As you can see, it's a massive scope. There's a lot of different technical areas in here, and 19 of them. Unfortunately, they didn't like push out any descriptions of these 19 areas of what's in scope and what's not. In the draft RFP, they just gave us the list here. So this is what we have. If your past performance and your past contracts fit within these areas, you could be in scope. And I say you could be in scope because there is an entire page of things that are not in scope. And let me pull that up here in a second. All right, so what's not in scope, right? This is not a contract for advisory or assistance for systems engineering or technical assistance. Okay, so kind of interesting that they applied a large amount of the draft RFP scope of work to saying what's not in scope. So basically, all advisory and assistance services are classified as, so the A and AS is the acronym, as management and professional support services, studies, analysis, and evaluations, and engineering and technical services. Not in scope. Okay. And then systems engineering and technical assistance are classified as systems engineering, technical assistance, and systems engineering, technical assistance. And this came from the draft RFP. So like I just copy and pasted it. But I also pulled in the stuff here. I was meant to have two screens when I put this presentation together, but as I was rushing to get out here, I was like, man, I want to be outside because I've been sitting inside all day. I'm in Florida, by the way, and it's gorgeous outside. It's probably cooler here than it is there in the DC area. So I wanted to get a little bit of sunshine. Screwed up the presentation, so I apologize about that. But I did put the definitions here. And the management of professional services are advice or training for the efficient, effective management and operations of organizations, basic responsibilities and missions of the agency originating the requirement for the acquisition of services by contract. You know, they have a bunch of stuff here like program management, logistics, project monitoring and reporting, data collection, et cetera, right? Then the other thing is studies, analysis, and evaluation, right? Which was interesting. And that is services that provide analytical assessments, evaluation, and support of policy development, decision-making, management, or administration, right? So that's what they mean there. And then the engineering and technical services are support to the program office during the acquisition cycle by providing services such as systems engineering and technical direction. They quoted the FAR clause, right? And then we have the systems engineering technical assistance is systems engineering is the interdisciplinary technical effort to evolve and verify an integrated and total lifecycle balanced set of systems, people, and process solutions that satisfy customer needs. And then technical assistance is the providing the acquisition support, program management support, analysis to execute the acquisition of the program. And then the combined one is a combination of it, right? Of the combination of the two, right? So that's I pulled these things in here because these things are not in scope, right? And I think the problem that we have is that when you start overlaying what's not in scope to what is in scope, there could be a really blurred fine line there. And as you guys are looking back through your past performance libraries, I could see I've read a lot of past performance, right, over the 15 years that I've been in business development. And a lot of past performance and corporate experience narratives out of the box are boilerplate and designed to encompass a large scope of work. And that is the opposite of what you want to do for this proposal, because that stuff will likely get you tossed out. We only have 600 characters for the relevancy narrative, right? So if you are copying and pasting from your proposal library, you need to be 1000% sure that any of the words in the not in scope section are included in your write-up. Like, don't include any of those. And that is probably counter to the way that your boilerplate, your canned past performances are probably currently written. Okay. Particularly if you're in one of these kind of blurry areas, right? If you look back over here, you have systems engineering specifically, right? You have architecture development, you have test and evaluation, and some of these things that may fit within some of these categories, right? So as you start kind of layering these things over top of each other, it's going to be really, really, really important that none of these words show up in your 600 characters that you get to submit. Right? So that's a critical red flag that you guys should look at and be aware of, right? So this is the corporate experience form. This is the first part of it. So if you pull this up, this attachment's on sam.gov, so you can see it. You have to fill out all of these areas, and then you got to provide examples of contracts that cover at least 2 of the work areas, right? So again, this lends itself to the interpretation that it's one contract for corporate experience, one corporate experience for one work area, right? So that's why I'm leaning towards that interpretation. The experience must be from a missile defense or similarly related application. Again, we'll get into that similarly related application here in a second, because I think you can drive a truck through that. And what is the fine line? Like what they need, I think that MDA needs to provide us some examples of what the similarly related application is so that we can judge, because there's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of things that may be considered similarly related, and we don't want to miss out on this opportunity because that is broad and undefined. And then ensure that no out of scope language is used in your write-up. So this is the form. It's fairly easy. This is the second portion of the form. In box 6 there is where we actually have to provide a detailed description of the experience and the relevancy of the requirements of the solicitation, but you're limited to 600 characters, which is approximately 8 lines of text at Times New Roman 11.1. So our detailed description needs to be very, 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 very focused. I think that we may need to, I would recommend that, particularly for other branches, MDA is part of Space Force now. For other branches where you've done similarly related work, like potentially the Army, like if you included the Patriot Missile Defense corporate experience, any work that you've done on that system, for example, you may need more space to define what that stuff is, right? Particularly in DoD world, spelling out the acronyms the first time can eat up all of your 600 characters. Like there's so many freaking acronyms, and sometimes people don't know what the actual acronym stands for. They just know the acronym, speaking from experience coming from the Army. there's a lot of acronyms that oh yeah, I know what that is. And you're just like, well, what does it mean? And I have no idea, actually. I have to go look it up, right? So I think we may want to ask for more space here. 8 lines of text is not a lot of space, particularly when you are trying to prove out that something is a similarly related application. So the other thing here is that you have to have this signed by a cognizant contracting officer or a private sector equivalent who was authorized to contractually bind their organization. So that signature has to be there. And a lot of people got tossed, well, not a lot. Some people got tossed out from Oasis Plus, or they didn't make the minimum requirements because they didn't get the signatures that they needed. I heard that from 2 companies. So if you have FPDS, you can submit that in lieu of the signature. So you have to fill everything else out. Just it doesn't have to be signed by a contracting officer or in a private sector equivalent, right? So either you get this signed or you submit a FPDS. So there might be a lot of questions around this too. Some people's subcontracts prohibit them from talking directly to the government and submitting these types of past corporate experience forms. So I think we need to ask the MDA about that relief as well, because some large companies where a lot of this work goes through do not give these types of signatures. So if you're lucky enough to have a good relationship with your large prime, where you did related subcontract work to this opportunity, and they'll sign this for you, awesome. If you know that that's not going to fly, and that your primes don't do that as a matter of policy, then you need to ask for relief from the MDA so that you can submit your relevant passport. All right, so this is I'm kind of going to get into the weeds here a little bit, guys. I made up some scenarios to kind of get your brains thinking about what's in scope and what's not in scope, and then how to frame your past experience so that it is deemed relevant when you submit. So bear with me. It's a lot of text, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. So what I'm kind of thinking of is when I'm thinking about where to draw the line, it's same kill chain, different badge, right? So identify, track, and engage is the kill chain for missile defense and countering aerial threats, right? So similar application, I think it's still detect, decide, defeat loop against area or missile targets, even if the threat class, operating domain, or sponsoring service changes. So I think that that's pretty safe, right? Same kill chain, different badge. It's pretty obvious that MDA is building this to integrate across DoD. This is for all services of the military. So all branches, everybody in DoD can use this contract to acquire services off of it. So things like the integrated air and missile defense upgrades, like the Army Patriot missile systems, the integrated battle command system, space-based missile warning, tracking, SBIRS, hypersonic and ballistic tracking space sensor, the glide phase counter hypersonic interceptor R&D, battle management software for the Aegis BMD or the C2 BMC, directed energy or kinetic interceptors for cruise missiles or unmanned aerial systems, high fidelity modeling of simulation environments that replicate threat, flight, and interceptor performance. These are the things that I think are obviously in scope, right? They may be in different service branches, but these things would be pretty easy. I also think that's, when you kind of think of DoD systems, people really start talking about it as systems of systems, right? So every weapons platform and every system that is deployed is a system of systems. So I would imagine that if you're supporting a system that supports another system that is a related missile defense application, I think that would work too, right? So it's not super clear, and this is something that I would like clarification on. Like, hey, I'm not directly or my corporate experience doesn't directly support that missile defense system, but it does enable that system to operate, right? So I think that if we could tell that story, that would be included in the relevancy as well. I think we should ask for clarification on that. And I don't know if you would be able to do that in 600 characters. So if we have to explain why things are relevant, I think we're going to need more than 600 characters. So that might be the basis and logic to increase the character count um, for the past or the corporate experience templates, right? So I know why MDA put that out. They're trying to, President Trump has been out there talking about this program specifically, and uh, and wanting to make fast progress on it. So I understand that MDA is trying to limit the amount of evaluation work that is done, but there are drawbacks to that, and they're trying to move quickly, right? And there are drawbacks to that, which are we may not pull in everybody that we need into this program because of a limited character count. And we just didn't have the space to explain why our work was critical and relevant to this program. Okay. So something to keep in mind, I was kind of brainstorming on this, is like, what could we do? What could we bid? And what would be considered relevant, right? And General Gutland told Congress, he's the Space Force commander, he told Congress that they are providing commanders with the space integration and synchronization assets they need to conduct all domain operations. So we really need to pull in a large contractor force that have experience across the entire DoD to make this work, particularly if we're trying to support and we're trying to build an integrated space-based capability, right? So I included the link here to his statement. It's 8 pages. I recommend that you read it. This is the strategic direction of Space Force. And as they are, they've made the transition, right? As they are building out themselves and establishing their culture as a combatant commander and not a supporter of another command. There's a lot of cultural changes that are involved in that, from moving from supporting another branch of service. A lot of the agencies they were either fourth estate agencies or they came from the Air Force. And now they are a supported combatant command. And there's a lot of changes that are involved in that, establishing a warfighting culture and things like that. But I do believe that they're trying to build a system that will enable all of DoD to engage in better warfighting and deny our adversaries access to space and counter their capabilities in space with their electromagnetic warfare capabilities and their kinetic space-based capabilities as well. So very much read that. That's a link when you guys get the slides, which we will send out after this webinar. Please go and read that because it's a very good. All right, so I put some similarity questions here. So as you guys are reading through your canned past performances and you're starting to think about preparing for this bid or ask questions to MDA, 3 questions. What the mission thread? Does it support the kill chain? Like, does your corporate experience support the detect, track, and engage of missiles or aerial systems? Well, does it have the technical DNA? Like, does it include the same disciplines, the sensors, the interceptors, the command and control, the AI, machine learning, the cyber hardening, the digital engineering? Like, is it tied back to the scope of work? Can you find those specific examples in your monthly status reports, in your scope of work, in the work that you guys are doing, and can you tie it specifically back to the scope of work domains? And then the operational context, was it fielded for DoD users in a high reliability or classified environment? If you can answer yes to all 3, you're probably good to go. If the work is advisory, budgetary, or back office IT, it probably isn't going to count, but as in always, it's the common infuriating business school answer. Well, it depends, right? It might not. So let's talk about how to do that. So I put some examples here for relevant versus not relevant examples, just so that we are Yeah, because I was like, well, are there some real world examples we can kind of pull in and provide here, right? So, like, if you are part of the sensor and tracking integration topic, and you integrated the Army lower tier air and missile defense system and the Navy ANSPY 6 radios into the command and control battle management communication systems, cutting latency, you're probably in scope, right? If that's what you did. If you just wrote the radar roadmap white paper for the Office of Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, that is probably not in scope. That's pretty clearly an advisory and assistance service, right? If you are the C2 battle management software and you delivered an AI-enabled fire control algorithm for the Aegis Ballistic Missile Defense Baseline 10 program, you're in scope. If you ran the help desk for it and applied routine patches for the battle management, command and control and communications servers, enterprise IT sustainment with no kill chain impact, you are probably not in scope, right? So as you can see, I'm not going to read all of these. You guys can check it out. I just made up some scenarios to, think about how we can start focusing our past performance and how we can start tying that past performance specifically back to this scope of work, right? There's also some facilities and infrastructure scope as well. And again, these are my speculations because MDA did not provide us detailed kind of breakdowns of what was in the scope of work and what's not. They provided us a lot more information about what's out of scope than what's in scope. So these are my speculations, so take it with a grain of salt. But if you build a hardened classified ground station for the space-based infrared system, follow-on constellation, then that's going to be in scope. If you manage an office renovation at Redstone Arsenal, that's probably not in scope, right? So I tried to provide some examples here for you to start thinking about your past performance and how to frame it. All right, so things that are likely going to show up in your canned past performance that might get you tossed out, right? So if your past work is enterprise cloud migration for a service HQ, and that's kind of your canned write-up, I don't know if that's going to make it. The generic IT lift and shift story is probably not going to be deemed relevant. So things that we want to do is emphasize the cyber hardening of enclaves related to the missile systems or supporting systems, showed zero downtime, cutover, preserved real-time missile tracking feed, quantified data throughput or latency gains, benefiting the C2 BMC operators, right? We have to tie it specifically back to the scope of work. So we can't just use our generic broad scope, very impressive, canned write-ups of us supporting this many users and with this many technology endpoints and all that stuff. I don't think that's going to be deemed relevant. What's going to be deemed relevant are the very specific statements of this is how we supported a missile defense or related application. So there's just not enough room in 600 characters to talk about how big the contract was because it's not about size. It's literally only about did you support a missile defense system or similar application? And I'm assuming that similar application means other aerial targets and threats. So maybe you did a big data lakehouse for logistics analytics, focus on supply chain. Maybe we could reframe that as predictive sustainment for the THAAD and Aegis components. Or we could highlight AI models that forecast interceptor part failures, boosting readiness, right? As we get more detailed and make those so what statements within our past performance, I think this is how we can meet the relevancy requirements within 600 characters. So, anything else here? I mean, I would imagine you guys have been reading these. And again, I made these up. So they're just illustrative examples of us needing to be specific, relating our corporate experience directly to the missile defense or similar applications, right? So, and making sure we stay away from the out of scope language, making sure that we're crafting our support contracts to be on missiles, aerial defense, and things in the kill chain, systems in the kill chain, rather than our general support services contracts that, we use for a lot of different things. So don't want to leave anything to chance here, guys. We can start grabbing those facts, grabbing those details now, because you are probably going to need it, even if the proposal changes. This is going to need to be a very tailored corporate experience proposal, no matter what the format is. All right, so that was pretty much it, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over recommendations and kind of next steps and resources, and then we'll open it up for questions, and we'll call it a day. So capture recommendations here. Obviously, read the draft RFP documents. I mean, I know a lot of people that don't, so please do. Industry Day is tomorrow, August 8th in Huntsville. If there's an opportunity, I know the initial Q&A has already closed. I hope that they release the Industry Day slides from tomorrow. If they don't, I would really, really appreciate it if somebody would send me a copy, because I am not going to be able to go, unfortunately. I am on vacation, and my family would kill me if I left. I already work too much as it is. So somebody could help me out there, that would be great. But I did put together some questions to consider in case you are going. I'd like the government to provide some examples of similar programs that are in scope. So what are those other similar applications, right? What are those similar applications, and what's the hard line on that? I think we really need some examples there of what a missile defense or similar application entails. I assume that providing support to the systems supporting the systems that are doing the missile defense and executing the kill chain, I would assume that those systems are in scope too. But it would be helpful for the government to help us understand what is in scope and what is not, right? So what other branches are going to be considered for relevancy? Like what other that systems of systems kind of work would be considered relevant. So I think we could use some guidance there. And then what's the bright line between the disallowed technical assistance and the allowed integration and assembly? When you start thinking about what goes into integration and assembly, a lot of those things there's a lot of overlap there with the technical assistance. I think that for at least our write-ups, that's pretty clear, right? But, in terms of getting more clarity on things we can focus on and getting a better idea of what's going to be allowed and what's not, I think that's going to be important. And I talked about this earlier, the number of scope areas each corporate experience write-up must map to. I think it's one. It could be that a corporate experience is relevant only if it has 2 work areas in it. So some guidance there would be super helpful on that as well. And then I didn't check the chat to see if somebody answered this, but will MDA run on-ramps, and will newcomers compete on the same RFP? That would be super helpful to know, particularly for new entrants into the industrial base. Would be helpful for us to know. So if somebody put that in the chat, I'll get to it here in a second. All right, so next steps and resources. Schedule a call if you'd like us to help you review your past performance and kind of give you a review of what we think is relevant, what's not, and give you some ideas. Also, give me a call if you'd like to schedule our licensing offer and training. We provide market analysis, BD strategy, pipeline management, opportunity qualification, and other capture support and proposal support. You can click that link there to talk about your general business development needs. We also have a subcontractor portal that you can upload to. We are routinely putting together teams for companies as they need introductions to people with specific past performance. We use that database and call people off of that database. So if you have capabilities that you'd like to be considered, we have a form. You can upload your capability statement there, and we will be available. We'll review it as the need arises. And then we publish regular updates to major contracts through our newsletter and blog. Those are the links there. I'm assuming that a lot of you guys come through our newsletter and blog as it is. But if people don't, feel free. We'd appreciate it if you would forward that to other people in your organization. So that's specifically to my QR code or my Calendly event. So if you'd like to talk to me specifically, you can take a picture of that, schedule some time to chat about any of these things. Otherwise, you can click these links and it will go into our BD team and they can help you with whatever it is you need. All right, so this is my cell phone and email address. You can text me, you can call me, you can email me, and I'm available to chat, even on vacation. So with that, let's go ahead and get into questions. Let's see if we got it. So let's see here. I'm going to stop sharing real quick so you guys don't have to look at both screens. All right, so I'll go into the Q&A first, and then we'll go into the chat. Page 6 of the attached draft solicitation. This thing has Doge memo from 27 May written all over it, explicitly stating the scope of this work does not include ANAS and CETA services. My suspicion is therefore government evaluation and corporate experience in order to determine relevancy opposed. Associates typically point to. Your thoughts on the government evaluated in this manner? They could. Certainly, I know that a lot of Doge efforts were focused on this type of work to begin with, and NEGs and PSC codes were specifically targeted across all of government for the CETA work, for the technical advisory services work. So it may be risky to put in NEGs codes and PSC codes related to advisory and support services and CETA services. So if your contract has some of those as the primary NEGs code, I think that that's a critical offer or a critical question that we need to ask to see if, in spite of those NEGs codes, would the specific experience related to the MDA scope still be included, or would we be disqualified? I think that's a great question to ask. So, John, thank you for bringing that up, because that's a really good point. All right, let's see what we got here. Any other questions in the chat? Meetings being recorded, Fireflies. What's going on in Huntsville? Time and location, please. So the industry day for this is tomorrow. The deadline to register for that has already passed, but the Shield Industry Day is happening tomorrow. So Joshua posted that there. So thank you for that. Meetings being recorded. Is this session being recorded? This is so helpful. I believe so. Yeah, it is. We will be posting. Oh, Sophia already answered. Can we submit as a team? Yes, you can. So I saw that you are allowed to submit your subcontractors' past performance as well in the draft RFPs. So I believe you are able to submit as a team. So that may change in the final RFP, but as of now, I believe you can. Any other questions, guys? We got a few more minutes before we go. Hope this was helpful. Hope you guys got a lot away from takeaways from this. Again, we'll be processing this video, posting it on our website, and we'll also be sending out the slides with the link to the video, the recording of the webinar. So you guys can refer back to it as you need to. So any more questions, guys? Because it looks like we are running out of stuff to talk about. I can sit here and talk about how great it is to be in Florida, if you guys would like. So it's pretty awesome. We're on the beach. It's great to get some ocean time and see the water before all the craziness starts. All right. Any more? Right with you. A little warm in Tampa today too. Yeah, I'm in Indian Rocks Beach, so about 40 minutes from Tampa, north of McDill. So, all right, guys. Well, with that, I appreciate you all. We had to move today's webinar to 2 weeks from now. I don't remember what it was, but I wanted to get this out before the industry day tomorrow so that you guys have time to prepare questions and to kind of get your thoughts wrapped around the RFP. So yeah, like I said, you guys can reach out to me for anything. The licensing and training deal is really great value. If you'd like to learn more about that, schedule some time. If you got random questions about business development or you want to talk shop, feel free to give me a call. If you want to just call and introduce yourself, you can. I'm also on LinkedIn. At least once a week, I'm checking my messages on LinkedIn. So if I don't get back to you there, I don't pay attention to that a whole lot. Text message, phone call, email is great. So anyway, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and hope to see you guys in the next webinar. So cheers, good luck on your shield bid, and look to see you guys in the next event.